That's Marcellus Wiley, that dude.
Yes, sir.
All right, welcome to Speak for Yourself, the most fearless show in sports. Coming up, we'll tell you if Cam Newton's injury should mean the end of preseason football. And 1 hour from now, we'll tell you if there was something personal behind Eric Reid's late hit on Ben Watson. But we start today in Miami. Dolphins head coach Brian Flores made news earlier this week when he trolled Dolphins receiver and self-appointed criticized Dolphin team owner Stephen Ross for a support of President Trump and questioned Jay-Z's partnership with the NFL. Well, last night, following Miami's third exhibition game, Flores explained that his Jay-Z playlist was a challenge to Stills to block out the noise and perform.
You know, after the playlist was done, what you guys don't know is, you know, I walked up to Kenny in front of the entire group and said, this is a challenge to you to get open, catch the football, and make plays for this team, regardless of what's going on outside of this building.
That's interesting, but I think there was much more going on with Flores' comments last night. Much, much more. In addition to being a Jay-Z fan, Brian Flores appears to be a fan of Eminem and the movie 8 Mile. With his post-game comments, Flores undressed Stills the way Eminem's character, Rabbit, exposed the fraudulence of his rap nemesis, Papa Doc. Y'all remember when Rabbit rapped, "This guy's a gangster, his real name is Clarence. Clarence lives at home with both parents. Clarence's parents have a real good marriage." Flores more politely said the exact same thing about Kenny Stills, Colin Kaepernick, and Eric Reid. Take a listen.
I'm the son of immigrants. I'm black. I grew up poor. I grew up in New York during the stop and frisk era, so I've been stopped because I fit a description before. So everything that these guys protest, I've lived it. I've experienced it. So yeah, I applaud those guys who protest. So whether it's Kaepernick or Eric Reid or Kenny, I applaud those guys. I told Kenny that in our meeting in front of the entire team.
Brian Flores sounds just like someone I work with who grew up in Compton. Guys who are from it sound different from guys who aren't. Kenny Stills went to La Costa Canyon High School in Carlsbad, California. It's not quite Compton. La Costa Canyon students' average SAT score is 1,200. 95% of its students are college-bound. 75% of its students are white, 16% Hispanic, 3.4% Asian, 1% Filipino, and 0.9% black. Stills' dad was an NFL player. Kenny Stills fits the profile of the NFL's highest profile kneelers. Eric Reid is from the Baton Rouge suburb of Ascension Parish. This morning I read a story titled, "Even Hotspots Like Ascension Parish Feeling the Effects of the Real Estate Slowdown." Reid went to Dutchtown High School in Ascension Parish. Dutchtown is one of the best high schools in Louisiana. 70% of its students are white, 20% are black. 66% of Ascension Parish pulled the lever for our current president. I don't need to re-walk you through Colin Kaepernick's resume, do I? No one. Not Brian Flores, not Marcellus Wiley, not Jay-Z, and not me. No one is trying to denigrate Stills, Reid, or Kaepernick's upbringing. Their parents should be celebrated. But it is not a coincidence that the guys kneeling the longest, the guys dead set on being the modern-day Muhammad Ali's, all have a similar profile. Every honest person can see this for what it is. Confused dudes from the suburbs trying way too hard to prove their blackness. In 8 Mile, the movie, Eminem said, "Ain't no such thing as halfway crooks." Flores is warning Stills, there ain't no such thing as halfway protesters or halfway Dolphins.
Look, the player protest, I lived it. I mean, I don't know I don't know how many people in here have, you know, but I lived it. So that's where I'm at on that. It was a challenge to Kenny to perform regardless of whatever's going on outside. And, you know, I would say, you know, I've said this to him, he hasn't performed up to that level over the course of this training camp as I've seen him. So that was a challenge.
All right, sounds like kneeling might save Kenny Stills' identity, but it won't save his career as a Miami Dolphin. All right, joining the desk now are Fox Sports NFL analysts Mark Schlereth and James Harrison. Marcellus, I'll start with you. You like how Brian Flores is handling this?
First of all, applause. I have to applaud you for that, for the depth, for the layering, for bringing in to this issue, this cause, the fact that there is something that we need to keep our eyes on in terms of what the prize is. And there's an on-the-field prize and there's an off-the-field prize. And if you're talking about what Brian Flores did, he first made sure that Kenny Stills kept his eyes on the prize on the field. You're here for production. You're here to catch the ball. I understand and respect and realize you have a responsibility to who you are and what you believe in. But don't let that get in the way of what you're doing on this field. 1. 2, last year was your worst year. You got an extension, and now we're in a situation where you're not producing right now. And there's a lot more attention around you than what is justifying what we're seeing in you. So now Brian Flores addresses this, and it's going to get deeper, and I'm going to get deeper with it. But in terms of football, the priority is to perform. Now, if you're losing sight of that, and we know why you're losing sight of that, let me educate you on what I've been through, what you're fighting for. We're in the same boat, brother. However, you are now taking this cause, and your comfort with the cause has made you forget what's most important. This is not about color. It's not about race. It's deeper than that. It's condition. There's socioeconomic factors that are not being appreciated by those who have never been in it. I have a son that one day I will have a conversation with him about the black experience. And it won't be so myopic to just talk about police encounters. That will be a part of it. But there are conditions that my son, who lives now in the suburbs of Studio City, will never, ever be a part of. But I still want him to respect and understand his black culture. But when you go to situations where there is actual evidence and socioeconomic disparity between what we're dealing with and what they're dealing with, respect that in priority. And that's what I have an issue with Kenny Stills, Kaepernick, and everyone else. It became more than just the cause. It became credit. It became attention. It became blocking other brothers for helping those in those same conditions still. So do I respect what Brian Flores did? Beyond. And he did it in a way that kept Kenny's eyes on what's most important, why he's a Dolphin, is getting the damn ball.
Well, me personally, I don't have a problem with it either way, to be honest. I thought it was kind of funny. He's just trolling him, you know. Like, honestly, like, real talk, that's like when I was going through my stuff with Roger Goodell. And, you know, I was getting fined. You know, guys messed around with me. Hey, Roger's in the building, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, like he said, he came out. He said, I understand. You know, I support you. I've lived through it. I've lived through it in an era where it was worse then than it is now. But you need to understand, you're here to play ball. You're here to do it well. And you haven't been doing that since you've come up with the comments with Ross, with Trump, with Jay-Z. Your play has declined. And right now, I'm the head coach, and I'm in a position where it's very few of us, black men, that are head coaches. What is it, 3 now?
Yeah.
Now I have to evaluate you and clear out the noise and see if I'm going to actually have to keep you or cut you. Because now my job is on the line. So what you need to do is focus on why you're here and let the noise that's out there, because as of right now, it looks like that is what's lowering your play. So
seems like what he's most focused on.
Right. And right now, you're here to play ball. And that helps me be able to evaluate you and see if I'm going to keep you so that I can keep my job.
There's a level of snarkiness to this head coach, Brian Flores, that I absolutely love, because that's the way I was brought up in this game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they put you on notice. They put you on blast. This is not a try-hard league. This is a do-good league. And you don't do good, you know what? You're on the outside looking in. That's how the NFL operates. And I think a couple of different things. I think Miami historically here in the last however many years has had some of the worst culture in all of football. I've experienced it firsthand going there and calling a game and watching the Friday practice. And I thought to myself, that's the worst practice I have ever watched in my entire life, in 12 years of playing and 19 years of broadcasting. Worst practice I'd ever seen. And that's a cultural issue. That's a team culture issue. And what Brian Flores is telling you guys right now is, I'm not going to put up with bad culture. You're here to do a job. You're here to essentially be a good football player. And I'll tell you this, too. Put yourself on notice. If you get cut, it's a performance issue. Has nothing to deal with you kneeling. I'm sending a message to everybody. You can kneel, you can protest, you can do all those things. I applaud you for it. I applaud you for your beliefs, but make no bones about it. If you don't perform, you don't make this football team. And it has nothing to do with whatever stance you're taking.
And I think he had to clear the air on that, because when Kenny Stills first came out and made the comments over Twitter about Stephen Ross, one of my first thoughts was like, oh, damn, I wonder if his job's in jeopardy. And if he is using this as deodorant or as, you know, proof of you can't cut me. Is that the play that's going there? And it seems like a cover-up to me. And Brian Flores has politely called it out for what it is. And it'll be interesting to see if the rest of the media does some homework to see, is Brian Flores right here? Because he said, look at the guy's performance. If things don't go right, don't come to me talking about it's because he took a knee. He's here to play football, and all of this noise about non-football stuff is hurting him.
Wow. Now you have drawn a parallel between what happened with Kaepernick and what's going on with Kenny
Stills. There's a profile, man.
It's a profile and now a parallel in terms of Dr. Harry Edwards. Some say his former advisor, Kaepernick's, but certainly an advisor when he first started kneeling, told Roger Goodell, don't make a martyr out of him. Basically, give him an opportunity to play and play this out, because if not, what's going to happen is if he loses his opportunity, everyone's going to blame it on this situation and not on performance. Supposedly, Goodell didn't take that fully to heart, and we know the results of that. So right now, this could be covered.
Well, Marcel, I do think they took it to heart. I think the 49ers allowed Kaepernick to go that entire season the way they did because they didn't want to look like they were upset about him kneeling. So I think they played too soft with Kaepernick early. They should have shut it down early. They should have done it.
I don't think that.
I think Kaepernick could have still got back into this league as a backup to somewhere or got an opportunity.
That's facts.
That's facts.
That's facts. Dr. Harry Edwards said that as well. Teams were interested. We know what happened with the Ravens because of Nessa. We also know what if Kaepernick went into the Seattle situation. Denver was trying to trade. His value was dropping. Would you be a backup? Will you service a starter? No, I won't. Okay, now we're in this reality. You can now label or mislabel that blackballed, or you really don't want all the opportunities that exist.
Right, you're basically, you know, and I'm 100%. I mean, I think that certainly there were teams that said, I don't want that noise. I can't afford that noise. There's a bunch of those teams. There were teams that were willing to say, if you're willing to be a backup, and if you don't want that opportunity, I mean, most of us have had to go through that. Most of us have had to fight to stay in this league or be a backup. I
think we're leaving out one word. Are you willing to be a backup and take a backup salary was the other thing as well.
Right.
Kaepernick put a real high price tag, it seems, on what he was willing to play for, and teams are like, I'm not meeting that.
That's why the Denver situation didn't work. 2 years, $7 million. He was like, I'm not doing that. Seattle was more probably service Russell Wilson and not kind of what I'm signing up
the Denver situation was because obviously I live in Denver. It was, hey, we'll give you an opportunity, but you're gonna play at this backup salary. I think there was a bunch of incentives. As I remember, I may not be remembering that completely clearly, but I think that's how the whole thing went down. He said no to that.
Yeah, but you know, I have to push back on the whole, I think this caught the NFL off guard with Kaepernick, like how big it was. It caught Kaepernick off guard, how big it became. If you remember in real time, from August all the way through the year, there's no proper reaction because no one knows the enormity of it. And so I think that's where that...
I want to be clear here, too. I want to bring this back to Kenny Stills and Brian Flores. People for years, oh, there's no distraction. There's no distraction with the whole kneeling thing. And that's just a misnomer. That's misidentifying. I read today, and I believe it was on ESPN, but I read a story today someone wrote, and they said what Brian Flores did playing those songs was a distraction. And they cast it in a very negative light that his reaction playing those, that was a distraction.
Right.
And I was like,
so if that's a distraction, then
why
the
isn't
other thing would have to be
a distraction as well?
Because it's in response to him having said something about the person that he's playing the music about. So I've been in the locker room. Everyone says something is not a distraction, but at the end of the day, you don't want to have to answer questions about anything that somebody else is doing unless it's football related. So if it's not football related, it is a distraction. Guys won't admit it, but Mark can speak to that. It's a distraction that you don't want to have to deal with.
A coach and an executive, when you come to work, they want you thinking about football, not who the team owner had a fundraiser for, not whether Jay-Z's partnership with the NFL is appropriate or not. They want you thinking about football. And that, to me, is what Brian Flores is pushing back against. It's like, man, we're paying you a lot of money to think about and to produce on the football field.
I think it's really interesting, too, because we always talk about it as players. You don't talk about money, religion, or politics, right? That's what they always talk about.
That's all out the window now.
Oh, that's gone.
And then political correctness is just so out of control. You can't say anything without being judged and having it taken the wrong way.
All right, stick around. Later in the show, we'll give you our approval ratings for Brian Flores, and jump on Twitter right now to vote on what you think Flores' approval rating should be. We'll reveal it later in the show. Also coming up, could Cam Newton's latest injury mean more major changes are coming to the NFL? We get into that next. And don't forget to check us out on the Fox Sports channel on SiriusXM.